Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is Webinars with Wendy. I've been doing a series of webinars during the pandemic that is lasting longer than I anticipated, but that's okay because I have fabulous guests that I can continue to interview, and we will keep going into January and who knows how long. Even after the pandemic, I might even see if I can't keep going, maybe on a limited schedule, maybe not quite so often, but it's so great to talk to so many really well-educated people that are so versed in their topics, and to be able to bring you that information is just, it's really terrific. Today, my guests are Laura Plunkett and Shari Goodwin. They have both been here in the past, and I think, Laura, we've done 2 webinars?
We've done 3. This is my 4th.
This is your 4th, and Shari, this is your 2nd.
Yep.
But the reason I have the 2 of them here today is that Shari has been implementing a lot of the information from the webinars with her horse, and she's been working with Laura. So this is a webinar to talk about how you can take this information that we've been talking about and put it into practice. So I'm so excited about this webinar. So welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Wendy.
Let's have each of you just give us a little brief intro, a little bit of background, just for the people who may not have watched your previous webinar. So Laura, do you want to just kind of give us some highlights?
I would like to. So I am an equine communicator, which means I get quiet in my mind. And over time, I have developed the ability to hear what horses want to say to me. I say it in that way because I do believe everyone can do it if they put the time in and they practice. So I don't want it to feel mysterious. I've been doing it for a long time now, and I had the very good fortune of meeting Wendy for the first time at Misty Meadows Equine Learning Center on Martha's Vineyard, south of Boston, on an island, and just felt from the first time I saw her put a horse on pads that Wendy has a way about her that you can learn from, that's kind, that's horse-centered, and a wealth of information. And that was before the webinars. I felt very, very blessed to have had that meeting. And then we started to work together in different ways. I was reflecting back, Wendy, that you and I were coming back from Costa Rica doing a clinic there when this all shut down.
Yeah.
And one of the webinars, one of the most important moments I thought we had during our webinars was talking to people about how to help their animals through this really hard time. And I would say what you say, which is breathe through your ribs, right? Take deep breaths, keep telling yourself you're safe, and your animals will feel a lot better. But one thing, Wendy, that I did want to express before I also say some things about Shari is that when I met you, you put a horse on pads for the first time, and there were a bunch of other people there that you had known for a long time, and everyone was saying, oh, look at that, he licked, he chewed, he blinked. And I remember the first time saying, okay, this is weird, and horses do that all the time, and I don't really understand. And I was doing this work, and people would say to me, okay, the pads are working because the horse licked and chewed. And so my clients, even around the country, your name was out there, the pads were out there, you were doing amazing things. And I finally started to notice there's a pattern to what we're looking at. And you were the first person to open my eyes to that pattern. But I wanted to say that now when I'm calling people, they're not just talking about that, their understanding and their desire to slow down and to take all of the information on all of your webinars and put it into practice. I just don't want to discount what you've been doing for everybody during this pandemic, that the clients who would have said yes to pads are now saying, and to the mirroring from Andrea Wadey, and the backup from Sharon Wilsey, the therapy backup, and all you're giving people this free access to just amazingly loving horse-centered stuff. So I just didn't want to go over that too quickly. I think we're in the middle of a movement, where now when you, I don't know. I could go on forever and mention a lot of different webinars, but I am very, very grateful that I know that if I'm wondering something, I can look on your list and feel like I'll get a like-minded person explaining it. So,
well, thank you.
And that leads me to just say a little about Shari, if it's okay, because I had reached out to you after having talked to Shari and said, one of the things about this is we can all get on here and talk about ideas, but then people have to be able, one step at a time, to figure out how to synthesize this into a relationship with a horse. And when I was talking to Shari, and she called me because of these webinars, and I was talking to her horse, it became very obvious that Shari has put her own spin and her own integration, but it's all from learning and learning and learning, and then taking that into her relationship with one horse. So I had called Wendy and said, you got to talk to Shari, because there's a lot of people out around the country doing it, but I knew she was, and I think it'll make a great story today. And then also, when Shari's going to be showing you her slides, I just want to say I had the benefit, after talking to Shari's horse, of having her give me an hour of business development. And
awesome.
I just want to say, she took me so far in that one amount of time. When she's showing you these slides and these ideas, I just feel like I have always worked one-on-one, and now I'm starting this, I'm going to start making these things available online, the events that are straight from a horse's mouth. So it can be, people can watch me communicate with animals and ask questions. There's just so much came from it, I can't say. So I just want to put that plug in for Shari, that I felt in my own self the change and the shift after just that short time. So, all right, Shari, you're on.
I need 1 second. I have to fix the damper on my wood stove because
Oh, yes, you do.
Oh gosh, the power of the live webinars. Oh, thank you, Laura. That was so nice of you. I really appreciate your thoughts and your comments. And you are such a blessing. Oh my gosh. I mean, just the fact that, we're all part of this herd that Wendy has assembled and assimilated. And now we're all being able to benefit from each other's strengths. And that's just a beautiful thing. So thank you for your generous comments and for your gifts. And okay, so we'll have the big love fest here. But, well, thank you. And Wendy, gosh, we go back, it's been a while now. So it's pre-pads, you guys. I mean, this is going back, I don't know, at least 10 years, probably more, a little bit more than that now. Yeah. And I've had the great honor of working with Wendy with many of my horses, including my most recent guy, Lemon Squeezy, who we'll talk about in a minute. And Wendy, you just keep evolving and inventing and creating more greatness. And I always talk about live your greatness. What is that? Okay, look at Wendy Murdoch. That's who it looks like.
This was not intended to be a Wendy fest, okay?
We'll get over you in a second here, Wendy, but just be patient. To get that, what is that serotonin flood? You just immerse yourself in it and love it. But it's so wonderful to see both of you guys. And I work with a lot of women in business, a lot of folks in business, a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders. I'm a business coach and a leadership coach. I work with executives and really help them reinvent, help them reposition, help them achieve their big goals, sometimes with their teams, by themselves, all kinds of different things. And I'm also an equine specialist through equine assisted learning. So I partner with my herd to do a lot of different kinds of things. So it's not just the unmounted kind of work, but also with folks in the tech, because it pertains everywhere and beyond your riding, beyond the stable, into your family life and your relationships and your business or your professional life. These are common threads. So my whole goal really, I think, is to really integrate learning and then apply it all over so that you are perfectly aligned in this space of flow everywhere you go, if you can. We're all kind of navigating that space and we're at different levels, including me. So lots of places where I'm dead beginner. So I'm so excited to be here today, and I'm just so excited to be here with Wendy and talk about Surefoot pads, talk about some of the learning that Laura and I have discussed. And I've been watching these webinars. I'm way behind because I can't keep up with y'all. I mean, my God, who knew you were going to have 200 something? So yeah, so how do you guys want to begin?
So I think, why don't you give us a little bit of, because we're going to use Lemon Squeezy as the example of how to put things together, right? So why don't you give us a little bit of an overview on Lemon Squeezy when you got him?
Yep.
And
okay,
how that came about.
Can I go ahead and share the screen? Because I've got a couple of little slides that'll start to frame the story. And there's some charts in there because I was an environmental scientist for 20 years. I have a master's in biology, so I'm like total chart woman. I like to distill things down to their simplest parts. And so there's a little bit of analysis, but it's all in trying to communicate things in the most simple way possible so that I can understand it. But let me see if I can grab, do a screen share here. Let's go with this and go from the beginning. So we're going to talk about putting it to practice. And this is Lemon Squeezy. This is him in 2016. Can you guys all see the screen?
Yep.
Maybe quick chat. Yes, you can see that. So he's a thoroughbred, and he was a racehorse. There he is in 2016. He's a winning racehorse, and he's very competitive. He's a little guy. He's only 15'2", maybe if he's standing on a hill. And he's very short backed. He kind of looks like a little Mustang. You know, he's a tough little dude. He's got great little feet and real smart. So he won some races, and then he came off the track. He's my 11th horse, and he's my 5th X-race horse. But there's a huge gap between X-race horses, like 20 years. And I was not expecting to get another X-race horse. I was really looking for a midlife horse, you know, the safe packer trail horse. And that was kind of my intention. And you know how these things go. It's like I had my list of criteria, and somehow, I don't know, he came into the picture, and there was this emotional divine intervention, and such as it is, here he is. So I was told that he was super quiet and all of that, and you know, I think he is on his best days. He's quite a good egg, and he has massive fear triggers. So the deal with him is he has high adrenaline. He spikes up really fast, so he'll go from like a 0 from grazing to maybe a 10 even, really fast. So there's not a lot of room in there. We've been working, let's see, when did I get him? It's going to actually be 3 years the end of this month. So we'll get into that in a minute. So let me go ahead and move this to the next slide. So one of the reasons I was drawn to him and kind of thought about expanding my initial intention, I guess, for my horse search was, if I got a middle-aged packer horse for middle-aged me, that's great. And it's something to nurture my own joy and my own peace and my own journey. When I met him, there was something I thought, hold on, there's something so much bigger here. It was like a calling, because if I said yes to him, I thought immediately, wow, you know, we'd be going on this journey, because he doesn't really know anything about what I would want to do. He knows a lot about racing, but nothing about what being for an adult amateur. And when I work with clients, we're always going through this reinvention journey, human clients. And so I thought, what if I took this guy and we went through this whole coaching process of inquiry and discovery, just like I do with my clients, and we videotape our journey. You know, what could happen? Maybe we could learn some really interesting things from each other. And that way he has a much bigger role than just being my little packer trail horse. So I kind of thought about that, and I was a little nervous, but I decided to go with it. So I started putting together a reinvention program, and we launched it just, 2 months after I had him. Not even 2 months, it was less than that. It was middle of winter. It was super kind of risky for me, for sure, professionally and personally, but I did it in front of a live audience, and this was one of the charts that I used, and it's adapted from a couple of sources that I really respect. But anytime we're going through change, and you see this kind of on the Surefoot pads, and you see this in some of the other webinars, and I think every person is kind of going through reinvention at some level. You first have to have some awareness that you want to make a change, and then you need to make a decision to make the change, and then you make the change. Same thing like dieting, right? Oh, okay, I want to lose some weight. Okay, I'm gonna start tomorrow. Okay, well, tomorrow keeps getting pushed off if you're me. But then you actually make the change, and then you have to adapt to the change. And along the way here, there's a lot of fear spikes. So, you know, it's like, oh, can I really do this? Oh, is it the right time? Oh, am I, you know, all the beliefs get challenged. And then you eventually grow, and it's kind of this iterative process of stepping beyond your comfort zone and getting into something new. So he's going through the same process. So I share this with you just to kind of give you a sense, if any of you guys are going through a reinvention right now, or even reinventing your equine relationship, this is the general process. And so kind of knowing where you are, you may have made a decision, but you haven't quite made the change. It helps you kind of get a sense of the larger system in which you're working. Does that make
Shari,
sense?
this is a great chart. It's a really great chart. And for me, I just want to give an example so people can kind of get a sense of this, because about maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I got an email from my lawyer that I've been putting the little registration mark in the wrong place on my trademark. And, and that was a huge awareness. And the awareness, the thing was, it meant that I was going to have to change everywhere I reference it. And so I had to make a decision as to what I was going to do. And I actually made a decision to rebrand completely. And so, so I made that decision to rebrand. And then I went to my graphic arts guy and I said, I need a new logo. And so we've been bashing it around and we've come up with a new logo. And so we've made that change, and now adapting, we have to put it everywhere. And it's amazing how many places my logo is. But it's so interesting, because if I hadn't had that awareness come to me, I wouldn't have gone through this process and we wouldn't have upgraded. And people love we're going to launch it in January. People love the new logo, and it's really quite fun. And I had a photo shoot, and when we saw the photos from the photo shoot, it matched perfectly with the new logo, even though one was in Kentucky and one was in Europe. And so it is exactly this. And so I just want people to realize that this isn't just with your horses. This can be almost anything, where you suddenly have an awareness. And I think where a lot of people get kind of caught is they have the awareness and then they get stuck in, what do they do with that?
Yeah, and that's such a great example, Wendy. And these, so for folks, I actually ended up writing a book about this whole journey we went on in 2018. And this chart is in there, and you can either find it on my website or find it on Amazon, but it's called Reinventing Greatness. And there's a lot of free content on the YouTube channel too. So if you want to look at any of that, there's tons of free stuff up there. But this is a super handy chart. So that's just something to kind of think about in the back of your mind. And then this is I inserted this one kind of in a last minute here, about 5 minutes before this talk, because I thought, because I can't stand not niggling with anything, I'm like, but there's more, but wait, there's more. So this one, I don't know if you guys know about the hierarchy of competence, but it's a fun chart, because what happens when you have this beginner's mindset, you're like, the world is cool. Let's check this out, check that out. There's not a lot of fear. It's kind of a nice place to be when you can have a beginner's mindset and let yourself explore. And you're in this place of kind of like unconscious incompetence, because you don't really know what you don't know. Everything's kind of interesting and cool, and you're starting to explore. And then you move up to, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to employ this new technique for, say, riding, right? And then you pretty quickly discover, unless you're a super talent, that you are consciously incompetent. You're really not very good at it. And now you become very aware that you're really not very good at it. And this is a fairly big, it starts triggering the fear of not being good enough. And the truth is, you're really not good enough at that point. And it's okay. We can be honest, right? There's always ways to improve, but it can be a very painful place for people to be consciously incompetent. And you just need to be patient, give yourself some grace, and know that it's all part of the process and it's all okay, and to seek help, right? Which is what Wendy's been doing and what Laura's been helping me with. And then as you keep working, you suddenly start to get a little bit better, and you get conscious competence, which a lot of us are in that place with our riding, as we're like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I'm not always good at it. But I'm pretty good at it sometimes, and then you're like, and Wendy, you always say that you ask people this question, well, what do you like about your riding, or what do you like? And no one can think of anything like, well, I don't like this and I don't like that. And I remember you saying that, because I've been to probably a ton of clinics of yours and worked with you privately for many years. And it's so true. We're always picking ourselves apart. And the thing is, embracing what is going well, embracing the feel, even if it's fleeting. You want to start anchoring that feel and the positivity. So then as you move up, and we're all aspiring to be in this place of flow. And this is where, Laura, for you, when you get in that place, you're so connected to the animal, and it's just coming out, and you're so tapped in. And it's like, literally, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, because I've experienced it with you.
I do want to stay sometimes, because it's one of those feelings. Yeah.
Right. So it's that juicy place where you're not thinking, we're out of the head. You're in your entire being. You're using your entire being as a sensor. And that's what I try to work with clients with is to stop, kind of offload some of the cognitive and just get into that state of being and feeling and perceiving and moving in and working like that. So that's another quick little chart.
Well, and I just want to point out that we've all been here and been through this chart. Like anybody who has developed a skill has gone through this process and continually goes through this process. So this isn't like, Laura and I have talked a lot, and you don't wind up being in the flow without going through these steps.
Yeah.
And you go through these steps at different times. It's not linear. It's like it's like the stock market, and some days you feel like you fell out of it, right? And then you have to climb back in again and go back up the ladder. So, if you're looking at this chart and thinking, oh, these are, I complete this step and then I go to the next. No, it's all over the map in the process. And some days I'm sure you both have experienced this, that, some days I'll walk into a lesson and I won't feel like I'm in any kind of flow, but fortunately I have stock lessons that I'm good at, that I can call up when I'm not feeling that flow for the person in front of me, but I can still give them a really good lesson. And so it's skill development. This is also skill development.
Yeah, it's skill development, it's practice, it's patience, and it's a lot of self-acceptance, being okay wherever you are. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be consciously incompetent. That's actually a really wonderful, humbling place to be. And, your ego has to be, it's all out there. And we have to be gentle with ourselves in that space and know that it's a fragile place, but we're willing, right? We're willing to be there because we want to be better. And we want to learn. And can't do anything better than that. It's awesome. So I just have a couple more quick charts to set this up. And then we have videos of Squeezy. We've got some photos coming up. So hang in there. Oh, here's the photo. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is him. So these are, my husband watches me ride periodically, and I usually ask him to bring a camera because I learned videos can't lie, which is talk about humbling. Oh my gosh. So he has this trigger response. He has they never come out of nowhere. They come up for the horse, and they always make sense. They may be that I wasn't aware, again, the same awareness reinvention chart, I wasn't aware, but his is really fast. And I've ridden lots of thoroughbreds, and I have warm bloods and all kinds of horses. The thing with him is he'll go from almost grazing, head down, good, and boom, he's spurting. So he's a quick little munchkin. And this top one is, I just saw something kind of out the window as we were passing by, and he was kind of relaxed, and then he scooted. So I just share this with you, just kind of like, yeah, this is really true. And then the bottom ones were outside, we're kind of trotting around, it was good. And then there's something, and you don't ever see, like, he's not afraid of stuff. He hears something, or he smells something, or there was something there before, like a bear had gone by and there's it's wafting scents or something. So that's a little tricky because I don't see what it is. It's a feeling place, and it comes up quite quickly. He's gotten better. So we've been working on allowing him, creating a safe place for him, which is what we'll talk about, and having me be the safe place, which he still doesn't believe I'm the safe place yet. So I have conscious incompetence in many of those places, which is painful. And then other places where he just totally wants to be with me, and he accepts me and sees me as a safe place and as his leader. And that's beautiful too. And it's fleeting. So this is, in the spirit of full transparency. I'm kind of bearing my soul here because some of these things are kind of ugly, but I just want to share with you guys, this is our journey. This is where we are right now. And we could have used a little serotonin spray or something. Put it in my mouth. Put it in his mouth. But
rescue remedy is always helpful.
Rescue remedy, right? So this
Shari,
is
can I add something here too?
Please, yes.
That Lemon Squeezy said to me, but also is such a common denominator when I talk to horses. When you mentioned, oh, he hears something, he smells something, he sees something. We have to remember they're so much more sensitive than us. And so we'll say, oh, I hear people say, oh, he jumped at nothing. And really, we need to be humble. I feel like we need to know our own incompetence, that we're not that you're not trying to get a horse to be confident, but you know what I'm trying to say. And then my other thought was, I remember him saying to you, you may think I've been in this arena over and over again and I should be better by now. But his adrenaline is such, and Wendy, you've talked to many, Dr. Stephen Peters and others, that when that adrenaline is up, you can't learn. So for him, I remember him saying he wanted you to know that he just hasn't had as much experience as you would think because of that.
Thank you, Laura. And that's exactly right. And so our first webinar was back in April of this year.
Yeah.
And we showed some video with him on the Surefoot pads from even before that time. And then I had a couple of slides of like that week. So if you guys are interested, you can go back and look at some of that. There's also some slides on the high impact leadership model and how to get to that high impact zone. And that's what we were starting to work on there, was really getting him into that place, and it still wasn't enough, right? So he needed more. He needed more, being able to be completely calm without stimuli or stimulus or stimuli in an environment so that he could really start to relax. And I am a stimulant, you know, me carrying me around. Sometimes it's too much. So we're working on this. So let's go here. I think this is the last slide, and then we'll go into the last chart. I shared this one last time, and this is something that I developed for my business and also from really looking at horses. And what I'm finding is that this is a super simple way of maybe illustrating what many of your guests have been talking about with parasympathetic and sympathetic, and this is kind of in human terms. When you're on this top of the circle and you see that trust, there's really, in my mind, there's love and there's fear. This is kind of your baseline emotions. For my corporate clients and some of my business clients, the word love is a little too intense. So the euphemism for me is trust, right? So trust is on the top, fear is on the bottom. And when you're trusting, and you think about yourself even, when you trust and you feel safe, you start to feel safe with a new person or a new environment, then you start to explore and notice things, right? And then you start to see options. So you start brainstorming, and you start seeing all kinds of different things that you might do or go, places you might go, and you start to grow from that experience. And on the flip side of that, if you're feeling fearful and you're in that kind of limbic space and you're feeling guarded, you're feeling unsafe. So you're going to the other side of the circle. And when you're starting to feel unsafe, you know, as humans, we're kind of like, ugh. You usually kind of pause, you kind of start to freeze somewhere in your body or your brain or something. The options that you see start to compress and they get really narrow, and you almost get this like tunnel vision, and you start to shrink a little bit if you're really starting to get scared. So these are human terms, but I've actually seen horses do this as well. And they flip back and forth, flip back and forth, flip back and forth around the circle. So it's, again, it's not a linear process. You may see many options and you're up there, you're feeling really good. Something happens, fear spike, and like, whoop, all of a sudden you feel unsafe and you start shrinking back. And we do this ourselves in our own professional development, our own personal development. And we definitely see this with horses. Does that make sense for you guys?
Absolutely. And this chart's great because when you look at Vegas's biggest question, vagal nerve, is, am I safe? And so when feeling safe, you can engage, you're curious, you can learn new things. But when you're in that threatened space, of course, fear and all these things, and it absolutely applies to horses. They need to feel safe. That's like their number one priority. And we've had some great webinars. One of the ones that comes to mind is with Lucinda Baker, who did the equine mandala, right? And she was talking about how the horses are scanning their environment all the time. And we tend to check out and think about what we're going to have for dinner or what we did yesterday. They're always present. So they're always in one of these states. They're always aware of what's going on around them. And Laura, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
You got it.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so much there. And I even remember, so just getting back to some of your other guests, and I remember, Wendy, you and I were at a clinic with Julian Bognon, right? And
oh yeah,
was there back in whenever it was, and you had just discovered Sharon Wilsey's book, Horse Speak, and you went running out at the break and brought it back to us, and we're looking at the buttons and everything, and like, oh my God, brilliance. So there's Julian doing this awesome stuff, I mean, amazing. And there's Catherine Wyckoff with her Feldenkrais, and amazing. And then with Wendy, and now I've got Sharon Wilsey's book with the 13 buttons, which, man, that go away face button, killer, love it. So it's my favorite for my geldings, including lemon squeezy. Just but there's just so much there. So you know, I'm always integrating other people's thinking on this. And Catherine Wyckoff did that great webinar on vagal tone, which was just fascinating. So again, great content. So let's move on here for a minute. This is this is actually a picture, Wendy, that's you and me from the first webinar.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things, so we're gonna jump to a video in just 1 second, but one of the things that I tried to do with Lemon Squeezy, once I realized, okay, whoa, in the beginning, the saddle was a trigger, the bridle was a trigger. You know, he was just like getting juiced up to go racing. And so, and being in cross ties, and gets angry, doesn't like to, gets a little claustrophobic in there. So, you know, teeth snapping, and he's a cute little dude, but man, he can make an ugly face. Yeah, the teeth gnashing, the little thing, the tail's doing this and pinching at the girth and the whole thing. So I was like, okay, we're going to take everything off of him and just let him start to explore and get curious about the world. Because what I found is there's this awareness piece. And being aware of the energy of yourself, of other, and of the environment is absolutely critical to good leadership and to creating a safe space. So I work a lot with executives and business leaders, all kinds of different people, business owners, and everyone really is a leader, and everyone watching this is as well. I mean, you're leading yourself, and we have a certain responsibility. And if you're leading a team or you're leading a horse, we have to be really keen on our own self. You know, what's the energy that we're projecting? What are we picking up? What's the energy of the other? And then what is the energy of the environment as we see it? Now, what we see may be different from what the horse is perceiving. And we're perceiving it as 3 different things. It's either safe, and I also call that neutral place. I think Sharon Wilsey calls that kind of the zero something. I call it neutral, or a threat, or you're just invisible. So there's been places where I've been invisible to Lemon Squeezy because he's in such a fear spike that I become completely irrelevant. And I also notice, you know, think about work. Sometimes you can be invisible at work. Sometimes you can be invisible to yourself. So these are really important concepts for us to gain awareness around so that we can be better just for ourselves and also for our relationship with our horse. So I wanted to show this quick video. This is from one of the Reinvention in the Round sessions that we did at Liberty in front of an audience. It's just like a minute. And so Wendy, I don't know if you can cue that up on
if you unshare your screen, I can pull that.
Oh yeah, let me get rid of that. Hold on, get all the way up here. Okay.
And while you're doing that, let me fill in with the thought that horses tell me that growing up, they either learned that people were the answer when they're nervous, when they get scared, or they've learned horses are the answer. And sometimes on breeding farms, right, the people are just telling them what to do, but the horses, they're allowed as yearlings, they're out with other horses. So it's really interesting to look at your own horse's orientation, and did they learn that people are the answer or not?
That's so profound. Profound.
And with racehorses, most of them, they're out in a herd setting with other yearlings, and so the horses are going to be the answer for a lot of their childhood, if you will, until they're about, you know, if they're going to go to the sale. I'm going to turn the sound off, right, Shari, so you can.
Is it possible to do it with the sound on? Let's try that and just listen for a second.
Okay.
So this time we're going to come back over here, see where this is, shake it out. What are you already noticing? Those of you who are here, different, right?
Still with you.
It's still with me. You're going to help me unroll it. Actually, don't need that. Okay.
So this horse was desperately afraid of this tarp the month before, and I had not trained him on it
Consider
since.
this proposal. So this is our $10 million proposal.
Okay, say that again, Shari.
Yeah. So this horse the month before, so people came each month, was terrified of this tarp, running around all over the place. And I don't train him on this or anything. It's just literally exposure. I just let him do whatever he wants to do. So they now come back a month later, and I've not worked with the tarp since then. So this is where we are. We're creating a safe space of trust and curiosity.
All right, so he saw the tarp the month before and he was terrified. And did he ever get over that terror that month before?
He would stand next to it and blow and look at it, blow and look at it. And that's perfectly fine with me. I didn't care. You know, just wherever you are is completely fine. Total acceptance.
Okay.
So let's see what happens here. The people are back now.
Well, it's a $10 million RFP that we are considering bidding on. And we were not sure if that's what we were going to do, because remember last time we thought we might have to outsource part of it. We were going to look into subcontractors. We were going to talk to Noble about bringing it. Noble was going to lead that part, right? Okay. Remember, I don't school this. I don't drill this. I don't do any of that. Basically, what I'm doing is setting up an environment, hopefully creating a safe space, but not always. Because what I consider safe and what he considers safe is not always the same thing. And then allowing him to decide, well, where do I want to be? You know, how do I want to do this?
Okay. So they're all laughing there because, you know, he was a total snort fest the month before. But the key there for me, and I was completely surprised. I had he could do whatever he wanted. I didn't care. And the fact that he chose to come across, and I've not done any join up with him or anything. I'm not that good. I don't do any of that stuff. He chooses to do these things, right? So what do you guys make of that?
Well, I find it fascinating. And that's why I wanted to point out that you did nothing with the tarp in between, but you obviously worked with lemon squeezy in between.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so were you just riding him? What kind of thing?
No. We were barely doing any riding at that point because this is where I had to get him naked because all the riding stuff was triggering.
So that was really early on.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, Laura, it's your turn.
Well, I just want to say that he looks a lot like when horses come off pads.
Yeah.
He looked completely relaxed. I try to remember sympathetic, parasympathetic. Parasympathetic starts with a P, and so does peaceful. And that's how I keep it straight. He looked very peaceful. I felt like he was complete. I didn't feel, I see things with a soft eye. I felt no worry. He was comfortable. He didn't care who was watching him. It was really nice to watch.
But I think one of the things that this brings up that is so important for people to understand with horses is that horses think about things. They don't think about things the way we think about things, but they do process information and think about things. In other words, this horse clearly had thought about the tarp in the month in between. It wasn't like it happened and then he never considered it again. He clearly must have considered it to be that comfortable with it a month later.
Yeah, so Dr. Stephen Peters talks about the dwell time.
Yeah.
And this horse is a very deliberate horse. He loves to contemplate, and that's a human term, I know, but dwell, absorb. If I rush him, not good.
Right.
And one of the things, with a lot of the horse trainers say, you have to move their feet. You need to be in control of their feet, get their feet, all this stuff, and get their attention. Oh, yeah. And if I do that, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but if I do it too quick, he gets spun up because there's this fine line between him checking something out and thinking about it and blowing. Right? So we have to be mindful of where is that threshold, because it may not be physically evident, I mean, it is happening internally. You can feel the energy and the intensity starting to come up. We need to intervene before it blows, right? But it's been really interesting just playing with that, because it changes all the time. So for me, that was an anchor point to see him in that setting, feeling safe, choosing to be a partner with me in front of a crowd. That to me is his greatness. That's lemon squeezy stripped of fear, right? That's the guy. That's the guy. Yeah. That's the curious, fun guy. So it's there. And so, okay, what do we need to do to encourage that kind of feeling and that partnering in a riding environment? And that's been really the next level evolution, right? So let's continue. And
okay, but I just want to kind of emphasize that point one more time, because so many people think that you have to repeat and repeat and repeat to train horses. And I think what this video shows most clearly is that if you set up an environment and not pressure the horse, and then allow them to process that information, they will come up with good choices.
Yeah, Wendy, that's so huge. And there's 3 videos on my YouTube channel called under my name, called Reinvention in the Round. There's part 1, part 2, part 3, and that was a clip. All right, so they're all free. You guys can check them out. They're fun, great for a snow day. They're like 90 minutes a piece, but you'll see the whole thing. And it's really interesting to see the whole evolution of how he transforms his fear, how he chooses to do that. And he's self-regulating, right? I wasn't helping him with that. That's the thing, is to help build confidence. And the same thing is true in my coaching clients. I don't necessarily tell them what to do unless it's a consulting type thing. And then, yeah, I will. If I have expertise, I'll tell them. But mostly it's this process of inquiry and self-discovery. So we're asking the questions. It's a Socratic method, which is why I loved working with you immediately, Wendy, when I first met you, because that's what you do. You're asking the questions, right? And then you're providing reference. What's the old place? What's the new place? Yeah. So thank you, Catherine. So this is all kinds of possibilities for that whole Socratic method to use with your horse. And there's this question and answer. And Laura, you're so great at that too. You're always inquiring and then just being open to whatever the response is without judgment. Being present to the response without judgment. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we block the response because we've got an ego piece in there and we fear what the response is. I'm not good enough, or he doesn't love me, or there's some kind of emotional something garbled all up in there and we can't get clear. Yeah. So, okay. All right. So let's get on with it here. Where am I going next? I gotta get back over here. I gotta get to the screen. Sorry. Yeah, let's get on here and then we'll go next. How do we get to the next? Oh yeah. There we go. Okay. So December 18th, we got in 2018, we got to this place. Fast forward, 2019 was a nightmare. He fractured his face hitting a board right in January of 2019. Not a big deal, but he was laid up, couldn't do anything. Then later he was off and on again, lame, and then really pretty lame. Ended up having a collateral ligament injury, which he got IRAP treatment for. He was supposed to be on stall rest and small paddock. He was a disaster, the worst small paddock turnout horse I've ever had in my life. Hated that, was running, even with drugs. It was awful, really awful. And so he's out of work, he's bored, he was anxious. It was just bad. And then my older horse, some of you guys know, he was 20 and he ended up having to have surgery. So he was 8 days in the surgery hospital, and I just had to deal with him. He needed 3 months of aftercare, and I was like, look, I have to focus on one at a time. You can't all have issues. So like, Squeezy, you just need to chill. He got turned out with another horse, with Noble, who I referenced earlier. And he immediately took over Noble, who is 17, and dominated him. And it was rough. So that was 2019. So 2020, the plan for me was, I can't restart this horse. He needs to go to a trainer. That's it. He's going to go to a trainer. And so I started calling people, started setting some things up. And I was like, March, he'll go to the trainer, whatever. And then the pandemic hit. So, that's that. And Wendy, you and I started talking in April. And at that time, I was doing a lot of Surefoot because he had been so tense and he needed to really be almost like reacclimated to the whole thing. I don't know what happened. He just had a complete kind of breakdown in 2019. And you know what? I might have been a little different too, quite frankly, because I was pretty worked up about my other horse. And I was thinking, oh no, I can't do right by Lemon Squeezy. So I was having my own fear triggers about Lemon Squeezy being healthy enough, and then Fresco having these issues. So whatever, it just wasn't good.
You know, but Shari, sometimes when you open a door, especially with these OTTBs, you open that door that you're going to listen to them, and it's not unusual for a lot of stuff to come. And Laura's sitting there smirking because I know she's going to chime in on this. A lot of stuff that's been bottled inside that hasn't been allowed. You got the garbage can, and you got the lid on the garbage can, and now you've said, I'll listen to you, and you prop the lid open, and bleh, all this stuff comes out. So, when I look at what's happened to you in 2019, and I didn't realize all that had happened to you in 2019, but to me, it's kind of like all of this stuff that kind of got stuffed in there needed to come out. Sort of, like you have to express all that stuff, because if you don't, you're still going to be managing it all the time. So maybe I would look at that year as going, this is the year where he expressed all this stuff so that it could become conscious, right? So that it could be different. I don't know. Laura, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm smiling because what I'm going to say is a little touchy. Just want to say it easily because it's about trainers. So you imagine you said in 2018, it's starting to come together. He has a rough year when you're worried, and then you're worried about him. You're looking at him with a certain, and then you go, I need a trainer. And you picture a trainer and he thinks, oh, she's giving me away. Like, that's it. Well, they can see what we're picturing. And so it's just, I would say to everyone, one of the things that's really hard is I meet owners who say to me, I don't know what's wrong. I have given him to this trainer. I shipped him to this place for a couple months off. I brought him back here. They've spent a fortune. They've done such loving things for their horse, but the horse misunderstood. And he just thinks he's being shopped around, or he has failed and he's being sent away. So I know that brings up, it's not the trainer's fault. It's not the owner's fault. But it's important when we have ideas that try to put some kind of thought in your head as well, like put you and the trainer together with Lemon Squeezy in the picture, things like that.
That brings up, I remember a horse that every year she was sent to a new person. And when I saw her, it was at the end of the year where she was anticipating being sent to a new person, but she wasn't going to a new person. And she completely fell apart. This horse was a mess because so many years she'd been sent to a new person and had to start all over again. So they do have cycles. And sometimes we don't recognize that, so that just kind of feeds into your trainer story there. Okay, onward.
Thank you guys. That's such great insights. And then those are things I hadn't thought about. And I'm not a person who sends my horses to trainers. I will go with them to a trainer and I will go take lessons and I will do that. But I had gotten into such a place with him. I'm like, that's right. I'm not doing right by him. I don't even know, I'm creating a disaster here. And so then you get the thought, right? So this is the belief starts to be like, you are not good enough. You need to send your horse to the trainer. So, then we have the pandemic. So I couldn't. So it was like, okay, now what do I do? So I started, he was getting more tense. So I'm like, oh yeah, I've been watching Callie King videos and Wendy, your effortless riding video back in 2018 helped me get to that picture there. It was great. So I'm rewatching all these things and I'm going, Work, Schiller, all these guys, I'm checking them all out. And even, well, anyway. And then lots of Surefoot. And I'm thinking, all right, there's a blessing here too. There's always a blessing whenever there's an issue. So let's move on. And I realized by the summer of 2020, we had some good moments, some not good moments, but I could feel this like ball of tension in there. And so I finally stopped and I was like, okay, I need to again get the vets back. And I had vets out and they're like, oh, he stepped on a rock. Oh, he's whatever, he's this, he's that, but never really conclusive. So I just like, no, something's not right here. We really need to check it out. So it ended up that he had he's pretty lame in the stifle, but it wasn't super apparent in the videos until you did the flexion. Then he got an injection. I was very concerned about ulcers. And I was also concerned possibly about Lyme, since he had been having such a dramatic change. And Dr. Joyce Harmon's come out a few times. I've known her for 30 years. She's amazing. I have like the SWAT team of great people. My other vet came out, gave him, the stifle injection, did some other things with him. He got on Gastrogard, he got on Doxy, did all that stuff. And I even looked at Steady Horse by Noah, I forget his last name. He's great, bought some more online training for it, just did some more enhanced stuff, did a little something, had a guy come out from something else. And then I saw Laura on there and I was like, oh, I need to talk with Laura. I need to know this lady. Who is this person? So we had a conversation with Laura, and this was the first time I reached out. And I've worked with animal communicators before, and I'm oh boy, they saved the life of my very first X-race horse, who I had her almost 31 years, and just amazing. So we had this conversation, which was pretty transformational, in September 24th of this year. And not going to share everything about it, but it was a lot about, I just have my notes right here. It was a lot about what Laura has shared a little bit already about being, I see him as, we've been in the indoor a bunch of times, we've been whatever, something, I must be doing something wrong, or he's not, what is going on here? But what Laura was able to convey to me was that he had not been present, because that's my word for that. He wasn't really present to the experience because he had so much fear, and he really needed more of this dwell time and more time to just be part of this environment, and for me to be able to be patient with that. And there was just all kinds of beautiful things in there, and some physical things, which was great, and we were able to address those. And then here's a really cool thing. I said, here's what I'm looking for. I'd love to have this. And Laura, you were so cute. You told me that he's like, what is it? He wants to be that for me. He's going to do it. He's in. I mean, it was like this cute little energy, and it was so lemon squeezy. It was so funny to hear you kind of conveying that to me. And it was so sweet. And I said, all right, well, I need to know, we have to have like a visual that, that you're connecting to me. Because sometimes you just check out, and I didn't even know, like, if you even see me or anything. I'm meaningless over here. Okay. So our little sign was something that he does do periodically. And I thought, well, what if we did this more intentionally, where he touches my hand with his muzzle? So that was our little sign. And we had other things. Laura, is there some things that you'd like to highlight from our first discussion?
Well, one of the things that I was aware of when I was first starting to talk to him, I remember saying to you, does he have an attention issue? Because I'm saying, hi, I'm here with your mom. I'd like to speak to you. And he'd go, okay. And then I'd hear nothing, because I'd look, and he's in my mind's eye, he's wandering on, or he's like looking at this, he's looking at that. And so, what he was asking for was, can we back up and take this slower? And, but so willing, so lovely. And I will say, in terms of validation, this is the kind of situation where we hadn't spoken about him first. So then you have to make sure. I just want to back up and say, I am not perfect at this, and it's easy to make mistakes. So I always ask clients not to tell me anything ahead, and then we'll make sure it's the right horse I'm connected to, and that it's making sense. And right away, Shari's laughing, because the minute I said, does he have an attention problem? She said, that's him. It was very funny.
Yeah. And the focus, I'll tell you what, focus is so much better now. I mean, so, when you're working with a horse, whether it's at liberty or, riding, I guess it's more of a feel thing, but you're trying to connect. So a tip of an ear or a little eye, just a glance, something like some kind of indication, would be helpful here. And I mean, he'd just like check out, and yet he was doing everything.
Well, you got to show them him trotting, because I feel like we're talking, they haven't seen enough.
Oh yeah. So you haven't seen her. Okay. So let's go. Okay. So there's another couple of quick things. So then I'm like, okay, I'm now starting to gel my new approach here based on Laura and some other things. And now he's feeling better too, physically. Had Joyce check his Dr. Harmon check his saddle, all the stuff. So then Lester Buckley, who I love, and he was on one of your webinars as well. He comes like once a year or so from Kentucky. He used to live in Hawaii. He's probably one of the most amazing horsemen in the world. And I've been lucky enough to ride with him each time he comes out with different horses. So I had hurt my back. He comes out one time a year. I hurt my back, November 12th, he comes out. I'm like, I have to be able to work with him. So like, Lester, can you just take him and do something in hand with him? You know, just anything. You know, Lester's amazing. It's raining, it's a crummy day. The horse is a complete mud ball. And he's like, oh, sure. You know, so he does his things, a few things in hand, even before we had just kind of gotten out of the paddock, before we even went to the indoor, because Squeezy was already doing this thing and looking around and doing all that. So he just very gently kind of got him going. And then we went down into the indoor arena and he worked him in hand around these little cones. He's like, Shari, he's got a little too much. He didn't use these words because he's so much more eloquent than me, but I would say it was too much, like there was too much stimulus. So he said, we're going to put these two cones very close together in the indoor, and we're just going to do this little figure 8 pattern in hand around these little cones. That's it. I mean, maybe, I don't know, 15 feet apart or so, because that's all he can handle. This is our little mini arena. This is a safe place. I'll tell you what, that horse like transformed in hand. And it was just in a halter and a lead. I mean, just beautiful around these things, light and soft. And that did something in my mind. You know, when you get that visual and you get that feel and you're fully present to it, I was like, okay, so let's look at this next video. And I know I don't want to take too much time here, but
You're okay.
this one's,
You're going to unshare the screen.
oh yeah, sorry. Get so excited, I forget. Let me stop sharing the screen. So this one's going to be the November 15th, I think. So this was literally 3 days. I went to the chiropractor myself because I was like, you got to fix this now. So he fixed me up, and like, I gotta be able to just get that image in my head. And Lester was saying, okay, this is how you do it when you ride. And he's still in hand, but he's like inside leg, the outside, and it just flowed so nicely in my mind. And this is a technique too. Is it that one? Is that November 15th?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let's look at this, and you'll see some of the dwell time too. So this is pretty recent. Now, I could barely ride this horse in this arena the month before, and that's when I talked to you, Laura, because he was spooking at everything. He was so tense, constantly worried about everything. And Lester said, and there's surefoot pads right at the bottom of my mounting block right there. So I'd been using the surefoot pads as well to help him just relax in space. And so you see he's nice and calm here for the mounting. He's quite good. That's a Callie King. She helped me with this. One of her videos, she showed me how to do this. And I was like, awesome. So super good with that. And he gets a little treat. He's the only horse I've ever treat trained. But he loves,
but it's so important to use what works with the individual horse and not be stuck on, oh, I don't use treats, or
Yes.
So important.
So see the little cones right there? Not to interrupt you, Wendy, but these are the little cones. We actually had them closer together to start. And that's like the little mini ring. And then the poles were the sides of the ring. And so here I'm giving them some dwell time just to kind of chill.
Okay, so I just want to say, right before you gave him that,
yep,
I could feel him starting to think, uh-oh, what are we going to do?
We're going to back.
And then you let him calm down and it went away.
Okay, let's just watch. I'll stop talking.
Yeah, you can hear his breath there.
Mm-hmm.
And the other interesting thing about this, and again, just to kind of bring in other ideas, I'm just going to pause it for a second. Sharon Wilsey talks about a safety cone, a cone to use as a place to feel safe. So it's so interesting that Lester's exercise was just 2 cones and just making him feel safe. And so my point being that we can start to see these threads of other people that I've had for webinars and other ideas, and they're all sort of playing off each other in different ways. That might not be the intention that you had the cone as a safety cone, but that it serves as a safety cone. So we can start to see these threads that keep running through. And by the way, Callie King is rebranded as Horse Class. So if you're looking for Callie's videos, just look up Horse Class. Okay, and I will continue this.
Oh, hold on. Let me tell you one quick thing here too, Wendy, while you're saying that about Lester and everything. That just reminded me that one of the keys that Lester, I got from him, was that he would invite perhaps a trot around the outside of the cone. Like when he's doing the figure 8s between the cones, he would just give a thought of it. And the horse didn't have to do it. He could do it. He didn't have to do it. Just kind of like with the tarp, right? The same approach. So this is the thing, thinking about giving him the option. It's a soft invitation with no repercussion. He's not going to go to smackdown if you don't do it. He's just going to, hey, maybe try this. Or if you don't want to, that's fine too. It's all fine, right? It's all good. And so I was really trying to adopt that into my body from a learning framework and not a thou shalt trot now. I used to do a lot of dressage.
And you know, with thoroughbreds, one of the things you have to realize with thoroughbreds is they're bred for flight. So their threshold to flight is really high. And the way I've seen, I talk about the ADD moment in thoroughbreds, when they feel too much pressure, they literally just check out. And people think, oh, my horse is not paying attention. And the truth is my horse is overloaded. And so he has to leave mentally. He's just like off with the fairies, because in a way, I don't know that they leave their body, but it's sort of that out of body experience. It's too intense where they are, so they check out. And I think that it's really important, if anybody's dealing with an off the track thoroughbred, to realize that, like, if you've ever ridden one that's not been on the track, they're so sensitive that they read your thoughts and respond. And so we tend to think that they're not paying attention and that we have to escalate. And really what's happened is we've flooded them and we have to de-escalate so that they can feel comfortable enough to be able to do what we ask. It's tricky because you think they're not paying attention.
And Lucinda Baker did a great job describing it too on the webinar with you.
Yeah, she was awesome.
And you know, the other thing about this too that Lester shared was you can't let them get bored also, right? So the thing is, you're creating the relaxation, and then they can start checking out by getting bored. So he was really good about then just give him a tiny little something, move his 1 foot to one side or 1 foot to the other side, or move it back, just one little tiny something to think about. And he said, what you'll find is you'll be able to expand this ring. He'll tell you, and he's going to get bored in this little space. So you're going to need to stretch it, and it could be, you know, pretty quickly, but you got to just play with it a little bit. So anyway, I'll stop talking now so you guys can see what'll happen.
I would love to have Sharon Woolsey on this to talk to us. Maybe we'll have to include her next time.
And his right's a little harder. I've never sat the trot on this horse before.
And you know, it's so interesting to watch him because he wants to carry himself really, really well. Mm-hmm. He naturally wants to carry, but you can also see that there's from his mouth that he's still experiencing tension in the whole thoracic sling up through the throat, up into the tongue. And that's where I think that the activity in the mouth is a tension that you're seeing coming from the front end, right? But you also see how he's a naturally he carries himself well, you know, and he needs, that's where, you're just going to give him the time to just think about that really, really simple exercise. Yeah.
So I'd love to hear Laura's comments on this.
Well, I like what you said about the mouth, Wendy, and also what he told me is he's still trying to figure out where to put his head. Yeah. Because if you think about racing, it's flat out, right? And now she's saying, and he loves, the other thing is you could say, oh, he's playing with his mouth, he doesn't want the contact or something, but he wants to know she's right there because she doesn't have heavy hands. But he's very busy with these little micro movements too, about where's this all, you know, his head isn't really still if you look yet.
Yeah, no, I don't think that the mouthiness is a result of contact. To me, it's the tension in the whole front end. And you have to realize that a lot of racehorses have their tongue tied so they don't swallow their soft palate, right? So that whole mouthiness there to me. It's not about the contact current. It's about previous.
And he did mention, didn't he, Shari, that one of the things he had experienced, he told me, is they would put the chain over his tongue for, I think it was it the farrier or something. That was one of the things he had experienced.
Yeah, yeah. And right. And the other thing too is, you know, so this one's pretty good because he'll give me a whole lot of tail flicking sometimes because he's like, and he does the same thing when I'm handling him. He's very body defensive, like he doesn't really like to be touched. So when I push him with my leg like that, he's, you know, you see that it's almost like some of those mares. I used to ride a lot of mares, so thank goodness. But they're very expressive with their tails sometimes, you know, when they're irritated, and he does that a lot to me. So I always have to remember, okay, I need to tone everything down, and he's still learning. So there's that fine line for me of, you know, when they're young and they're learning, you almost over exaggerate an age sometimes. Well, I really need to be careful not to do that with him. I have to ride him with my intention first and give him that opportunity to just be like, yeah, I got it, without assuming I need to kind of do something with an outside leg.
And we can see right here when you stop, I'm just going to pause this with, there's our lick and chew, right? So there's our dopamine hit. So he is getting dopamine. And that's where, you know, I think you get, I don't know if you cut this, did you sit on him longer before you take your feet
Yeah,
out?
well, no, I think I had cut this video just to make it short for you guys, but I do a lot of just sitting on him and letting him just stand there in various corners of the ring, you know, because he likes to kind of just do that. It seems to really relax him.
Well, and, you know, if we think about Dr. Peters and his work, it's, after you get the dopamine, if you stay there longer and just sit there longer, and I've sat, as you know, with horses as long as 15 minutes, and just wait for the lick and chew, and then not pet them, nothing, just let them stand, and let them stand for, you know, 10, 15 minutes. One of the fascinating things is you're gonna feel the breathing go through probably 4 or 5 different types of patterns. And all that changes is that's where you're going to get into that deeper level of relaxation and really get into the serotonin. The lick and chew is dopamine, but then when you just stay there and don't do anything, and you know, sometimes it's really hard. I know you can do this, but some people it's really hard to sit there and do nothing, not go on your phone, not pet your horse. That's a distraction, right? Just sit. And yes, they're going to see something and then they come back. You can do Sharon Wilsey's, it's okay, I got you covered. And they come back and just sit there and literally until you'll feel a whole nother level of dropping in, if you will. And that's where you're going to get your serotonin and your dendrites.
And the dendrites, remember he showed us that they keep growing.
Right.
Those slides were incredible.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm even thinking that you might experiment with doing your little exercise again and literally stopping, not taking your feet out of the stirrups or nothing, not even petting them, just sit there and see how many different breathing patterns you'll feel. And I've sat on Al, I've done this with Al, who's not stressed about much of anything, as long as food's in there. And I felt him go through, I would say, at least 5 different breathing patterns. And I found that so fascinating. Because it told me that things were still sort of percolating. They weren't completed yet. And with Lemon Squeezy, it's really clear to me that it's that dwell time, in my opinion, in that little video, and that's why I asked you how much you cut, needs to be longer. And the first couple times, it just feels like well, actually, this happened to me recently with a little horse I'm riding, Dunny. It was Joyce's mom's horse, and she passed, and I've been riding him. And we were in the arena, and for 3 days I had stopped and just let him chill out. He chilled out and relaxed, and everything was great. And then this one day I went to do that, and he wouldn't. And I was down there probably an hour and a half, just standing. And Joyce was about to come and check on me. She was like, "Are you guys okay?" But he had gone into a pattern of anxiety, and I had to just sit it through. Now he's a little Welsh cob, and he's an earth type of horse, really a lot simpler than your off the track thoroughbred, but they're so expecting things to happen in their life because everything's rushed. Everything has to happen. And that's not all thoroughbreds, but very often it's rushed. When they're around people. When they're not around people, their life is quite different. They in their stalls, they're eating hay, whatever. But with people, things are rushed. And I would love for you to do that experiment and see how long wear your warm coat and your gloves, plan to be there for an hour at least, and just do your little tread exercise and then just sit and sit and sit and sit. And
I love that, Wendy. Thank you for that. And I need to do that outside. So changing the environment. So what we're working on is where is safe? Where does he feel most safe? Is it outside? Is it inside? Is it wherever? And I would say it depends right now. So I'm just trying to create one place that's really safe. And that seems to be between those little cones. Now we can actually go around most of the arena, which is good. I've been outside a few times. I've had a few meltdowns.
But take your cones.
Take
So
the
that would be
cones and the Surefoot pads.
Take your and your Surefoot pads, exactly, because the Surefoot pads become safety cones also.
Yes.
So I would take those objects and set up the poles in exactly the same space and repeat the same exercise from Lester in the outside, showing him that this that we did here, we also can do here.
Super good. And so I have, well, actually, let me just pause for a second. Laura, did you have more you want to add on that? You're good? Okay, and I know we're over time. My apologies.
It's okay. I knew we wouldn't be on an hour.
I could talk about this stuff all day long.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where, and I thank you guys for your insights, and I'll definitely work on that. It's so the other part of this too, because it takes two to tango, right? So it's I got to do my own work. So on me. So I'm always doing work on me. I'm always looking. So the latest thing that I've done, and Laura, I don't know if this is after we talked, it might have been after we had our second talk. I just thought, I need to work on me. And this again came through the serendipitous kind of weird place where I was getting a name for one of my friends who was thinking about taking lessons, and it was a friend of whatever, went through me, didn't think about it. And then I thought, wait a minute, who was that? What was that? What do they even do? Well, they're 10 minutes from me. And so I just had a phone call and I ended up going over there and I've taken 3 lessons now. And the thing is, I'm riding their horse and they're eventing schoolmaster types. I have not been out cantering up and down hills and jumping in years, mostly because I've had lame horses, issues with horses, whatever. It's just been situational. I used to event, but that's a long time ago. And I just decided I needed to expand my own container, right? My own space so that I have more to give. Because if I'm here and I'm learning a little bit, that's all fine, but I only have that much to give Lemon Squeezy and that much to give my clients. And I'm always investing in myself, personal development, professional development, always, always, always for my business and coaching and all of that. But I hadn't been doing it for my own riding. Outside of riding lessons on my own horses. But I thought I just need to take that comfort zone, ride other horses, trust another trainer if I can, and just press that a little bit and feel into that space, because you got to be able to walk the talk. So I'll tell you what, it's a major epiphany for me. I mean, I didn't realize a whole bunch of things, which we could do a whole nother webinar on, but there's a piece of the human expansion leadership component where when you expand your own capacity, you come at things from a very different perspective. And now I am actually way better for Lemon Squeezy than I was a month ago, because I can carry my own self. I've been experimenting with my own balance on a horse that can canter up and down hills and go over jumps and whatever, and I can just play with wherever I need to be and not worry that he's looking at this or whatever's happening. And it's like my own Surefoot pad. I'm using them to test my balance, and I'm having my little serotonin wash. I get a lick and chew.
Well, and you don't have the emotional attachment to success, right? It's not if I mess this up. I mean, so many people get so caught up in, they don't want to make a mistake. And the biggest mistake they make is that they don't want to make a mistake.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so when you go and ride another horse, you're free from that. And it's always important. What you've done is you've checked out and made sure you found someone who's competent and has safe horses. And, if anybody's thinking about going to ride other horses, just really check out the person that you're going to and make sure that they have safe school horses and they're there to keep you safe. I've seen trainers where they don't care if the student is safe. So you just really want to make sure that you set yourself up for success.
I want to add something too about this because, we came on to do this because you're showing all the different pieces, what it looks like to be open and be using all these things, all these different things you're learning on the webinar and not in the relationship with one horse, right? And it reminds me when you talk about this, that some of the horses that I talk to, their owners think they're not necessarily good enough for their horse. So they'll say to me, I have my trainer ride the horse. And then sometimes I'll do a trail ride on him, or I have the trainer always there when I ride because I don't want to let the horse down. But oftentimes the horses, they're much more heart-centered. They want the relationship. They don't care as much about the finesse, but they're worried. They do pick up on insecurity. They pick up on fear. They pick up on the person not feeling good enough. And so I love what you did, which is you gave yourself a way to get more confidence and get more bandwidth and then get back on, because the hardest thing we do is we're worried about us. And then the horse under you is thinking, what's the worry? What's the worry? Something's wrong. And the best thing we can do is think, I'm enough. And I'm not saying you want to be overmounted. I don't mean to put you, you'd never want to be in a dangerous situation, but I'm just trying to tell you from a horse perspective, they just want to be loved on by their mom or their dad. And they just want that person to feel good, as if this is an honor to be riding this horse. So I just add that. Anything you can do to get out of your own head and just enjoy your horse is really big for them.
So huge. And you know what? One of the things that happened with Lemon Squeezy the other day, we had a meltdown in the outdoor. On the most beautiful last weekend, 70 degrees, the most gorgeous weekend. I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm going to get some great video for the Wendy webinar and Laura, and then we'll be, so right away, I'm setting it up. There's ego right there. It's right in there. So I went in there with my little agenda. I'm like, oh, I got to put these tight pants on and get out of here, whatever. So not really, but I thought, okay, we'll go do this thing. It's 70, you've got a winter coat. He's got a furry coat. It's a beautiful day. He couldn't handle it. So he heard, and this is what set him off. And it's funny, Laura, you said he gets a little scared of black creatures out there. So we do have a bear that walks around, and he's terrified of the black cows that live next door. So he was facing they couldn't see the black cows that live next door, but he heard this huge ruckus of crows, black crows. So huge ruckus of crows, and crows, those guys, they're pretty intelligent. So he's just like, no. Anyway, I bring him, so we dealt with that, get out of there, went down to the indoor arena, and I got on him and I said, and I'm having an ego thing. I need to get on this horse on principle, right? I'm just, I'm human, I'm sorry, but this is the way it is. And so I was like, we can do this, I got on him, he still wasn't right. And within 1 minute, I caught myself, thank God. And I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Just get off. And so I got off and I apologized to him, and I took him straight over to the Surefoot pads, and I offered him the pads, and he's like, yes. And he was still kind of big-eyed. And I'm like, you're not in trouble. You're not a failure. Here's the pads. And he got on the pads. And I'll tell you what, he was tense on those pads for a long time before he finally was like, oh, okay, I can kind of get in my little groovy zone. And you know what? And I'm standing next to him, wasn't patting him. I was frustrated with myself because I was so in my little ego. I'm like, I know better than this. I'm a coach, but I was having a moment. So, so he finally lets down, and I'm like, oh, good. And I thought, all right, well, I know where we are. It's okay. And he turns his head and he nuzzles my hair, and he puts his little face right here. And it was so beautiful. It was just like a thank you. Thank you for not making me try to carry you when I'm not feeling safe. And thank you for giving me this moment. And it's okay. I mean, that's what I felt from him. And it was just so sweet, So anyway, maybe that's a good place to kind of wrap up. But it was a moment. So the saga continues. It's not a linear process. It keeps going. And there's way more to learn, and it's fun. And, for me, it's all about just keep showing up. Keep showing up, keep learning, bringing some things in there, and be perseverant and patient, and, get the good help that we have access to here. And just keep on, just like anything, any kind of passion.
You
And
know, Shari,
Shari,
I
in
want
the
to thank you so much for, sorry, Laura, but for sharing, you know, warts and all. It's so hard sometimes because when we are professionals, people look at us as if we have it all together. And it's just that we have more experience having it fall apart.
Right.
And you know, it's never going to be a perfectly linear line. There's always a struggle. There's always a setback. But I think it's the word that keeps coming up for me is resiliency. And what you're building in your horse is resiliency, that something bad can happen and he can come back and it can be okay. And the more he realizes that that can happen, the more resilient, and then the better he'll be at being able to handle things, because he knows that he's not going to get pushed into having to get to that point where he's out of his mind. And that's the resiliency that I hear so many people talk about with horses, is that it's not that nothing's going to happen. It's, can they recover from that? Can we recover? Can we make a better decision? Can we make a better decision for our horse? Can we stop, you know, instead of pushing down a road that is not working? And I think that that's really an important thing for people to realize, is that, you know, it's our ability to catch ourselves and go, wait a second, I need to do something different. And that different isn't losing. Different isn't failure. Different is simply acknowledging the situation and making another choice so that we all win.
And I would add to that, that in the second time I talked to Lemon Squeezy, he said he'd like to be an endurance horse, didn't he? He has plans. So we don't want to leave this with like, oh, our goal is 10-minute trotting between cones on an indoor and that would be success. I think the most amazing thing is that if you continue like this and he gets confidence, I do believe you end up much further along, because once he has developed an inner sense of strength, the horses that I see, if they've been allowed to be given what Wendy's talking about, then the sky's sort of the limit, because you come out of that indoor arena with the 2 cones with a horse that deeply trusts you, mm-hmm. and therefore will take you anywhere. And when they panic, they look to you for help. So it's really exciting. I find this whole thing incredibly exciting.
How old is Lemon Squeezy now?
I think he's 9 this year, or 9. He might be 9 next year. I forget, somewhere around 9.
And how long did he race? I know you told us.
Until he was 6.
So he had from 4 years.
Well, so he's had 2016 is when he finished racing. 2017, he was hanging out somewhere. He was kind of a flip horse. And then 2018 at the end of the year is when, at the end of 2017, he came to me, to December. So 3 years ago, almost right now.
Right. But my point being that when you look at the number of years that he was in a racing environment, I kind of think like that you might need to think about the number of years post-racing, like, right, as when he finally realizes that he has these other choices. Like you're building, it's sometimes when you're in it, it's so hard to recognize that you're putting little bricks in the wall, and the wall is starting to get built, and you're going to see a wall. There's going to be a place there where he's like, oh, I got it. I'm strong and I'm capable and I can make good decisions. But there are times when it feels like your wall just falls down and no bricks, and you're starting all over again, and you have to pile them back up. But each time that we present the horses with another little opportunity, it's making another little connection, and pretty soon things start to wire. And yeah, it's exciting. So we'll have to have you come back, both of you come back probably in about 6 months from now and see where we are.
Oh, fun.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Really fun. Really fun. And this is great. I mean, it's so much fun to have both of you on, and to also be able to bring in so many of the other guests that I've had on these webinars, and how we're all sort of rowing in the same direction to come up with, intelligent ways of working with horses that honor them and recognize their nervous system and how they learn and the things they've been through. And I so recall people saying, well, I don't know why he did that. Well, there's a lot of reasons why we do things that people don't, like your friend does something. Why did you do that? From a history. And it's okay. We don't have to know all the history. We just have to go, okay, you did that. Let's see if we can do something different. Great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you both for joining me. This has been so much fun to see you both. Tomorrow I'm going to have another webinar on Surefoot. And then, like I said, we're going to take a break until after January. So thank you all for joining us today. This has been just a fabulous webinar and so nice to chat with you both.
Thanks, Wendy, and thanks, Laura, and happy holidays to you both. And thanks everybody for showing up.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you all. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.